guys, it's Martin Cliffe here, and just a little video this week. As I talked about last week, I said I was going to talk through my kind of guitar journey, if you will, basically pre-YouTube. So by that I mean that, by the time I started producing YouTube videos in 2009, which feels like a lifetime ago now, indeed it is longer than most of my students have been alive. At that point I was using primarily Ibanez JS100 guitars. I had my Yamaha TRB basses, and while all of the guitars haven't necessarily been featured on the YouTube channel, most of them have. So I'm going to go right back to the start and kind of cover the guitars up to that point. So we'll finish with Snowy and my blue Yamaha TRB. But way back in the start, I started playing the guitar. I can't remember if it was 1990 or 91. It was June, I think 91. But I started playing, as a lot of us did, on the cheapest guitar in the store. Which in my case, the store was Reedy's Music in Blackburn, which is still there. It's been going a long time. And my guitar was a Encore E76 strapped copy, S-type guitar. Made in India. You could get it in humbucker single or 3 single coils. The humbucker single was more expensive. I think it was an extra £10 or maybe £6. I think it was maybe 85 instead of 79. I don't remember, but it was, you could get it in black, red, or kind of antique white. I loved the kind of iconic look of Jimi Hendrix playing the white Strat, so I bought the white one. And that was kind of, the bug was bit at that point. It was, as I say, made in India, very cheap, not particularly great. The hardware, the bridge was made out of pot metal, and the actual tremolo arm action broke fairly quickly. But the rest of the guitar, it was solid. It played comfortably. It didn't have any major fret issues or anything like that. So I was pretty lucky there, because let me tell you, guitarists starting out today really don't know they're born compared with 30 years ago. The guitars we had were pretty horrid unless you spent a reasonable amount more money. Even the Squires weren't great at the time. But then fairly soon after that, I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was maybe a year and a half later. I don't know. I was itching for something different, and I wanted a guitar with humbuckers because I was going to play heavier music. And I remember I was with my parents, probably visiting my grandparents in Formby, but we went into a music shop. I think it was on the bridge near the railway or something, near a bike shop as well, if I recall. But this was in Southport, and on the wall was a second-hand Westdown Thunder, I think 2, guitar from the early 80s. Now that was a fascinating guitar. It had active circuitry in it. It had a coil split switch. It had a phase reverse switch. It wasn't neck through, but it kind of looked neck through. They were they had a look that was very much kind of late 70s, early 80s. I really wish I had that guitar still in some ways. It was a bottleneck, but it was a Gibson scale length. It had 2 humbuckers. It was very different from the Strat sounds that I was getting, and it became a very useful addition to my collection. And for a while I had the 2 until I sold the Encore then to my friend Nick. And then after a while I was ready for something new, because as young guitarists we all want something new, we want something kind of different. And somehow I ended up buying Epiphone Flying V with a locking trem. I found the only picture I could find is of a red one. Mine was black, and it was kind of cool. I'd been playing, I think, for 2 or 3 years by this point. It was getting reasonable, at least for that age. So it was more money. It was definitely a step up, a significant step up from the Encore, and probably from the Westdown. I think I traded the Westdown in for it, because that's what I did by then. You didn't buy extra guitars. You just traded one in for usually very little money because the shops were mean, particularly to kids. I understand that they had to like add VAT on and make a profit and stuff, but you know, they would give you £40 for a guitar and then you'd see it on sale for £100 the next day. They were mean, shops by then. So I had that for a while, and then my friend Ricky from school really liked that guitar, really wanted that guitar. He had a Westdown Thunder. Not the one I had, but the more simple version with only the one switch. It didn't have the active circuitry in it. But I wanted, I think, to buy a bass at this point. So he gave me some money and the Westdown for the Flying V. And that was pretty cool. So I had that. I then went through a bit of a time where I was playing in my first proper band at that point, and I repainted it, not very well, with acrylic paints in my drummer's bedroom one night. I was staying there for the weekend. Yeah, it's a shame because that was such beautiful wood, and now I would love a guitar like that. But what can you do? I don't have any pictures of it when it was painted. I then later on repainted it again, but then fairly soon after that it came and I had a rather unsatisfactory accident at a rehearsal where my strap came off. That's why you need strap locks, and it nosedived, or headstock dived into a concrete floor, and the neck broke. And it being a bolt-on 24 3/4 inch neck, not something that was easy to find and not worth paying money to repair. But as I say, I wanted to buy a bass, which is why I made that trade, and I managed to get a real steal on a early made in Japan Squier jazz bass, again in white. I don't have pictures of the exact ones, but this was a really cool bass. I then ended up selling it to my friend Rob, not Rob that you'll know, but a different friend from school, because he wanted to learn bass, and I think he had it for a long time after that, and really enjoyed playing that bass. It was a beautiful bass. I should never have sold it. Those early made in Japan Squier basses were amazing. It's probably worth a significant amount more money now than I either bought or sold it for. But then came the time. I think I'd sold the bass. I'd broken the headstock on the guitar. I think I would be about 15, maybe 16 at this point, and it was time to get something kind of next level. And I never set out to buy a pink guitar, but I went into HW Audio in Bolton, and there were two pink guitars that caught my eye, not because they were pink, but because I wanted something kind of heavy metal stratty. You've got to think that this is now like 93, 94, so this is the era of grunge, and these guitars were not cool anymore, which meant they were cheap. So there was a Fender HM Strat, which had 24 frets, a Floyd Rose single humbucker, and then there was also a Charvel 275, which is a pretty rare guitar from what I see. Humbucker and single coil, locking trem, Jackson equivalent, and 22 frets, single volume control, 3-way pickup select switch, and that's the one that felt right to me. So that's the one I went for, and I played that for years. And I loved that guitar. It was amazing. I did modify it. I refinished it 2 or 3 times. It ended up, there was, I think the 3rd time that I refinished it, I then lost some of the pieces, some of the hardware, and nowadays you could easily get hold of that, but back then you couldn't. So unfortunately, in the end, after like searching for 2 or 3 years for the right pieces and contacting shops all over the country, I think it just ended up going in the trash, which was a real shame because now it would be easy to replace, and it was a great guitar. But what can you do? I played that right through, Timber Merchant stuff, early 2000s, almost up to when I got the Ibanez JS100. But at that point as well, after the jazz bass, I bought another Charvel instrument, Charvel Fusion 5-string bass. My first 5-string bass, and in fact the only 5-string bass I ever had until the Mike Law, except for the Yamaha fretless. And that was a weird thing. It had some minor electronic issues. I had to take it back to the shop for repair a couple of times. Pretty sure I got it from A1 Music in Manchester. But it was really comfortable, and I played it a lot. It sounded fantastic. Played it particularly in the early days of Some Have Wings. Great bass. At some point along those lines, I also bought a Washburn Mercury MG42, which was the one with the maple board, hum single hum. That I didn't keep very long. I sold it to my friend John, who I was playing in the band with. Yeah, it was cool. I just never connected with it. I think it's one of the few guitars I've ever owned that had 24 frets, and I didn't like it. So played it for a little while and then passed it on. I also, roughly that kind of time, maybe immediately after that, bought an Aria Pro 2 fretless bass, 4-string PJ in black, exactly like the picture that I'll put up. And I remember specifically that because I had to play a gig with Some Have Wings when I was gigging with them in Blackburn. I can't remember which bar it was. It was an upstairs room in one of the bars, and I had to play the whole gig, including a bass solo that we'd put in when my 5-string was still working on this 4-string fretless bass, and that was hard work. We were a kind of funk rock band, and we the bass parts were quite challenging, and even more challenging on a fretless bass. But I played that a lot at school because I played bass in the orchestra, and our double bass at school was in a very sorry state. The rumour was that I think it had been hit by the minibus at some point or something, so it was generally pretty grim. So I got to play fretless bass guitar instead, which was cool. And then we're coming on to, at one point I just got fed up with the issues with the Charvel, and I remember seeing a Washburn 6-string bass, the Bantam series XB600, and that was kind of, okay, this is it, now I can play John Mayung stuff. So I guess I'd be about 18, 19 at this point, and I really, this became my instrument for a few years. I think at least 3 years I played this. I seem to recall trading it in for my Yamaha 6-string bass a few years later, but that was pretty cool. It was natural finish, just played great. Used it a lot. Roughly, maybe, where are we at now? So late 90s, I guess, maybe 2000s. In fact, it must be a little bit later than that because I don't think they were produced until about 2002, 2003. I bought my first 7-string guitar, which was an Ibanez JRX720. Geo series was very much the budget end of Ibanez's line, but this one played really well and sounded good. It sounded even better when I put DiMarzio pickups in it, and this became my main guitar until I got the the JS100, and for a while afterwards I still played it. I remember playing even with Fallen Angel. I had it mounted on a bongo stand, tuned to E flat, going through an acoustic simulator for a couple of the numbers, and it was mad. But that was, that was kind of the first Ibanez that I bought. I remember buying a Squier Affinity Telecaster. I think it was black, not 100% certain on that. Used to use that with the Timber Merchants for a few slide songs. I used it in a couple of musicals. It was fine. It was a Squier Telecaster. I didn't really know much about what I was picking at the time, but it did play great, and it played well enough that a friend fell in love with that guitar and got his girlfriend, now wife, to buy it for him off me, and played it for a while. That was a really nice guitar, particularly for the money. It was like virtually no money. At some point I bought a second 7-string, and it was a Squier Stagemaster 7. I can't remember whether it was blue or purple. I know they came in both colours and black, I think. I didn't have that very long at all, and then I sold it to Mark, who was the other guitarist in the Timber Merchants at the time. So I'm guessing that would be 2001, 2002. So I don't know whether that was the first or the second 7-string. I can't remember now. But it would have been around about that time, around about 2002, that I sold it on. So maybe I had it 6 months. Again, bought it in A1 Music, which may have been Academy of Sound by then in Manchester. But that's about it. That kind of gets us to the end of the journey, in the sense of the journey where it started, because then in 2004 I got my first JS100. And in 2000, well, no, earlier than that, 99, I think I had already the Yamaha TRB. So the Nogi came pretty stable for quite a number of years until we moved to Hong Kong. Didn't really change any guitars or basses. Added more Ibanez JS guitars, but other than that, nothing changed. Until we came to YouTube, and indeed until we came to Hong Kong. So I hope that's been of interest. Just a little bit of a journey kind of through my guitar past. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.